The calendar pinged at 1:17 a.m. Do not disturb wasn't for us. I'm not jealous of bodies, I'm jealous of settings. Bodies tell the truth if you stop staging them. Settings decide which truth is allowed to arrive. At 1:17 a.m., my phone announced a change in weather with corporate cheer. Focus started Do Not Disturb shared with Nate. Under it, a line I hadn't named. Allow calls from Arlo. The moon icon settled over my lock screen like a hotel towel pretending it belongs to every skin. Nate was out. Our bedroom had the posture rooms get when they've rehearsed a story without you. He'd texted at 10:43, bored wants one more drink. Don't wait up. Nate handles donors the way a bartender handles ice competently, pretending not to mind the cold. At 7:05, I'd filmed the coffee becoming itself because ritual is cheaper than religion and keeps better hours. I captioned it here. He reacted with the thumbs up he saves for nights that intend to rename themselves. The calendar didn't rename anything, it confessed. I set the phone face down and let the apartment perform its version of neutrality. The radiator hummed like an amateur chorus warming up on the wrong notes. The coat rack practiced looking innocent. The string of postcards over the desk, his staging ideas, his lists, hushed themselves as if paper could be polite. I boiled water. Water never pretends, it makes heat and declares it a fact. I was halfway through the second cup when the lock cleared its throat. Nate stepped in with his tie loosened and his shoes hooked by two fingers like witnesses too tired to lie. He smelled like lime and a decision made under forgiving light. "You're up," he said, as if etiquette had mailed me a warning. "The moon says you started quiet hours with a guest list," I said. "It made a special lane for a man with one name." He looked at the phone on the counter. I watched his pupils do the thing clocks do right before a minute either arrives or is stolen. He put his palms on the table the way our therapist taught us when we wanted to give words somewhere to land. The gesture is either dignity or triage. "Which question?" he asked. "Why or who?" "Why," I said, because Matt, my emergency adult, kicks me under imaginary tables when I lead with names. If I start with who, the icon writes our minutes. Nate stared at the patch of wall where the paint keeps wanting to retire without ceremony. "Because the part wasn't coming," he said. "Because donors clapped in the wrong places and then asked to be forgiven with gin. Because the Lark's back room smelled like someone teaching sadness to dance. Because Arlo, yes, Arlo, said his loft had air that didn't judge. Because the city wanted to be a cathedral for men with unearned courage. Because I let an app perform the job a mouth should do." "Did you kiss him?" I asked, breaking Matt's superstition like a boy with a stick and a fence. "In the elevator," Nate said. "Once, small and honest and wrong, I came home." "I hate how sane that sounds," I said, which is the sentence I keep for the arrival of mercy with bad timing. We didn't sleep. We agreed on daylight like a treaty. At noon we walked to Arlo's building, the one that pretends brick is an apology. The lobby smelled like citrus that had learned to whisper. The elevator remembered every mirror it ever loved. Arlo opened the door before I could knock. He looked like a man who had practiced humility in a mirror he paid for himself. Bare feet, sweatshirt, a mug that made steam into a reasonable argument. He saw us both and didn't pretend surprise. My favorite trick in men who owe a room honesty. "I was coming to apologize," he said, "to you both and to whatever part of your evening thought silence could be a gift. He loves you," he added, tipping his head toward Nate. "I like being near that. I'm sorry my work uses the same grammar as desire." "You don't get to call it work," I said, "because cleverness is my superstition and I tithe when I'm anxious. Rehearsal is a room, a kiss is a scene, a focus mode is a closed door. You don't get to be the verb in our kitchen." Arlo put his hands up with the careful poverty of a man asking to be searched. Then let me be the quiet. Nate didn't look at him. He looked at me with the exact weight of a man deciding which threshold deserves his mouth. I want open windows, he said, not open doors. We left with nothing more dramatic than the stairwell trying to volunteer absolution. At home, I wanted to set a chair in the center of the kitchen the way Matt prescribes, but I chose something else, the metronome on the piano. I set it at 60 and let the room remember that time can be made into a sound you agree with on purpose. Nate smiled like a man relieved to be caught kindly. He came around the table and paused, always that pause, his most decent habit. I met him halfway. The first kiss carried the correct weight, apology without speeches, intention without theater. The second found his fingers under my shirt and mine at the back of his neck, the place he keeps for oaths and sleep. I won't map the rest. The room didn't ask to be illustrated. Keep the arithmetic, shared breath, a belt resigned with grace, a wrist held as proof we remembered to ask. The city loves quizzes. 2 nights later, the theater's social account posted a carousel at 1:41 a.m. Hansel light, a corridor, 4 bodies if you counted reflections. Nate washing his hands, head down. Arlo behind him, tie undone. A stranger passing like a rumor. Me in the doorway because whoever posted had tagged my name. The caption said boys being brave. Comments arrived with their usual certainty. I typed nothing. I turned the phone face down. I tapped the metronome until the room's heartbeat matched mine again. When Nate came home, he handed me his phone without instructions. Delete or archive, he said. I don't want new grammar. You don't need me to erase your verbs, I said, and he rested his forehead to mine like a paperweight on a better draft. 3 days later, the email arrived with fonts that have never had to apologize to a kitchen. Residency, 7 days, quiet rooms, kind windows. Nate forwarded the PDF with every map attached, which is how you know a man has learned where courage keeps its receipts. I want to go without disappearing, he wrote. I'll send pages, not alibis. When I get back, ask me what I wrote before what I did. I taped 2 lines under the lemon magnet because props still save us when God is off shift. Addresses in the open. A good night here voice note every day. He added a third in his careful mess. If an I can't is coming, it happens where both of us are. Night 1, wind and a sentence I decided to believe. Today the table forgave me. Night 3, nothing, and my thumb became the worst teenager in the world. I opened calendar and stared at the focus schedule until the icons surrendered and admitted they were just switches. I moved the tempo to 50 slower. At 8:12 he called with a voice that made the kettle think there might be a God. I almost kissed a window, he said. It didn't know your name. I closed the blinds. He came back with a suitcase that didn't slam and 2 pages he treated like animals. They're not good, he said. They're mine, I said, and we performed our small religion. Paper, kettle, a room that knows it isn't a lobby. He slid his hands under my shirt from behind, slower than contrition, faster than nostalgia. Here, he said into the bend of my neck, and the word nested where it needed to. We tried boring. We failed gracefully. We tried again. Arlo learned to stand at the back of the house with his arms crossed like a man paying the bill he owes himself. He clapped exactly once after the final scene and didn't text. The calendar kept its talent for cheerful cruelty. I removed his name from Nate's exception list and added mine not as a privilege but as a reminder. That night, the metronome at 60 felt like an oath we could afford. The world is thorough when it thinks you've studied. At 12:06 a.m., my phone lit with a smaller betrayal disguised as bureaucracy. Shared album created Notes for Body Memory by Arlo. Members, Nate, me. I hadn't asked to be included. The first photo was a rehearsal still. Nate's hand on the line of a stranger's back, the kind of touch that is not a sin and not innocent. The second was a whiteboard with breathing marked like choreography. The third was a blurry hallway mirror. Hands, tie, mouth, the suggestion of a third presence behind the camera. I didn't react. I sat with the metronome and waited for the room to admit it was a room. Nate arrived at 1:21 with rain in his hair and a sentence ready. "He added you," he said. "He wants transparency to act like penance." I told him no. I came home. "I don't want penance," I said. "I want posture." He reached across the counter and curled 2 fingers under my jaw, an intimacy director's cue repurposed for domestic faith, and for once the gesture belonged exactly where it landed. We went to bed without performing an essay on forgiveness. We used our mouths the way men do who still prefer heat to cleverness. The room did not applaud. It didn't need to. Weeks alter even honest bruises. The calendar stopped trying to be a priest. The album sat there like a polite hostage. The city kept making rooms that want to pronounce us. I kept the metronome. It learned our hours and forgave our drift. When I opened the album one afternoon, out of the kind of curiosity that thinks it's professional, I found a short video. Nate marking a scene with a novice, Arlo counting under his breath. The novice missed the turn, laughed, and apologized. "Don't apologize," Arlo said from behind the frame. "Find your breath first." It was the exact instruction I wanted from a man who had complicated our nouns. One more test. It arrived stupidly, as most do. A ride receipt pinged at 1:03 a.m. Drop off Arlo's loft. A minute later, focus started. "Do not disturb. Allow calls from Arlo." The metronome ticked at 60 and 60 and 60 as if tempo could escort a man home. I moved the slider to 45 and let the time stretch. At 1:29 the lock exhaled. Nate came in and saw the screen and then me. His mouth arranged the sentence he had prepared. "I walked him up," he said. "He wanted to practice not being brave at the wrong hour. He kissed the hallway good night. I kissed the elevator the word no. Do you want to hate me now or later? I prefer now. I like the way you come back from it." "I'm tired of coming back," I said. "I want to stay." He nodded and closed the focus with his thumb until the moon became a fact again instead of a policy. He deleted the exception in front of me, not as spectacle, but like a man returning a key that had found itself in the wrong pocket. We stood there until the metronome aligned our chests, and then we went to bed with a competence that felt less like victory and more like craft. Morning behaved. It crossed the floor like a dog deciding the house is still worth guarding. I made coffee. Nate placed his palm over mine in that careful territory between heartbeat and promise. We are not fixed, we are rehearsed. It's a different kind of devotion, slower and less photogenic. I can live there. Around noon, Arlo's name surfaced again without permission. The theater account posted a still from the talkback. Nate turned toward a donor, laughing in a way I recognize, Arlo listening with the profession he sells. The caption used community like a password. I did the smallest treason and catalog geometry, the lean of ankle toward seat, the candid curve of attention. I did nothing with it. Some truths don't need translation. That evening we invited 2 friends and an ordinary hour to dinner. The doorbell recognized nobody by name. It simply rang like an object doing its job. The metronome stayed put at 60, patient as a heart that knows it can adjust later. After dishes, the kitchen took off its company face and became the room I trust. Nate set the timer on the oven to 3 minutes, a micro-ritual he says keeps us on the right side of a promise. Speak until the beep, don't interrupt, answer as if time were expensive. We used it. When it finished, he stepped closer and asked, not with spectacle but with grammar, whether he could touch me. I said yes. The rest is yours in outline. 2 bodies that have kept worse times finding the downbeat together. a breath that belongs to both, a door that understands the difference between greeting and granting. The calendar will try again. The moon is easily persuaded. Arlo will exist where he exists, a person, not a villain. Donors will clap in wrong places. The city will invent quizzes on nights we thought were already graded. But I have a metronome, a kettle, a mouth that knows how not to perform and how to stay. If another notification arrives at a foolish hour, offering me a policy dressed as mercy, I hope I remember the handful of humiliating, useful acts that got us through this one. Ask why before who. Set the tempo lower than your fear. Hold the breath before contact and let it finish being the scene. Wait for the lock's small throat clearing like it's the first note in a song we can still tune to. We didn't get away with anything. We stayed. We are still staying. When Nate says here, my body has stopped auditioning for suspicion. The moon can keep its icon. The river can keep its absolutions. The lobby can keep its glass. We'll keep being the address, or, on the nights we can't, be the map that admits its misprints and still shows the way back. Past the awning that thinks it's a verb, past the elevator's red light that loves its own memory, into a kitchen where time behaves. A kettle keeps its 7:05 appointment, and two hands that have done worse learn again how to touch without asking the night to edit.